I'm Irish.
You're still listening. This is our final transmission.
Oh, we're here. Hi, Jamie. It's me, Sam Russo. It's Jamie Carruthers. We're on the Final Transmission podcast. One horror movie a week from the dawn of time to the end of time. How the honking cripes are you, bud?
I mean, I'm okay. I'm reeling a little bit from... So, patrons will know that yesterday was St. Patrick's Day here in the UK and also everywhere else in the world, I guess.
And also, everyone will know that, not just the Patreons.
Well, yeah, but they won't know that yesterday was St. Patrick's Day because we are recording it the day after St. Patrick's Day, and I'm pretty rough. I did some festivities.
Jamie loves going out on St. Patrick's Day. For those of you who don't know, absolutely loves it. There's no holding him back. He's just an animal. I'm surprised you're even upright.
I'm not, and I hate it. I hate. Just stay in. Everybody in the world, please just stay away from places.
This from the guy who went out.
Yeah, well, I've learned my lesson. Never
Yeah.
doing it again.
I call bullshit on that. We'll be out next year, guaranteed. Next year, Final Transmission live podcast on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, coming at you from
like a
fucking
O'Connell's.
Tess Riley's in Liverpool.
From an Irish karaoke bar on St. Patrick's Day.
Can I
So
ask
we're not
you
doing-
how many times do you think I heard "Dirty Old Town"?
I'm going to go 6.
I think it was at least 14. I only went
Wow.
to 7 bars.
I'm surprised because that's more of a downer jam. I would have expected more upbeat Irish jams. but I
One
guess
place was
Liverpool-
exclusively playing Enya. Like, yeah, she's Irish, but fuck off. Come on.
Get fucked to hell. Maybe they're trying to deter the lunatics. That's a good one. It's like when they play classical music outside, like rough kid hangout spots.
Is that a thing that they do? Who's they?
They did for a while. Like banks and shit would play classical music in their doorways so that kids wouldn't hang out there and smoke crack and suck each other's dicks.
Oh. Well, Wagner gets me
Hardner.
huffing on my crack pipe.
I
So,
bet it does. Honking on dong and sucking down crack. That's what Wagner does to me.
yeah. So, we're talking about a classic, a stone cold 1980s horror classic this week, Sam. How do you feel about that?
Excited. Love the Leprechaun. Can't wait to talk about it. Good festive choice from you.
Yeah, I didn't do a festive choice, did I?
It's Fright Night.
Yeah, Fright Night. I have seen this movie so many times. It is basically burned into my retinas at this point.
So that implies you probably quite like it.
I mean, it's all right, isn't it? Had you,
It's never a safe bet because I know that even films you hate, you've probably watched a dozen times.
apart from the Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
had you seen it before? You were a bit unsure whether you'd seen it or not.
Yeah, I think I've seen it twice. I think I saw it when I was a kid. Classic Friday, Saturday night party scenario. It's on
Nice.
in the background. I've never really described why there were so many horror movies on at parties. We used to go to these house parties at a couple of people's different places, and the living room normally had a horror movie going and some people sitting around watching it, and then the kitchen was kind of the party hangs. Upstairs was, etc. And the vibe was sort of, you would just circulate in that system. And I remember Fright Night being on. I remember watching chunks of it, and then I definitely watched it maybe when I was like 18 or something on one of those Friday night movie nights. So I think I've seen it twice. I didn't remember an enormous amount about it either time.
I think it's massively, despite being like an absolute 80s classic that is talked about as an 80s classic when it's talked about, I think it's like massively underrated.
Yeah, I think I have quite a few ideas as to why, but we'll save that for spoiler territory. I think the most iconic thing about this movie is definitely the cover art. Like, I remember this in every format ever in the video shop. In 2 different video shops, I've still got a mental image of this cover. And it being absolutely outstanding in a world of pretty fucking good 80s horror movie covers. I always looked at this and thought, this and House, I used to just look at for ages and be like,
Yeah.
that looks so fucking cool.
And you hate House.
Yeah, it sucks so bad. Never even finished it. And this, I did finish.
Well,
So we are, of course, talking about the the Fright Night cover with the house and the ghostly
like the smoky
fang
cloud
creatures around above it. Because there are several different covers. That is the absolute boy.
Yeah, the icon.
Yeah, it's the one. It's the mama.
So, Fright Night is directed by and written by Tom Holland.
Not that Tom Holland.
No.
The other one.
Yeah, Tom Netherlands. He also wrote, I want to say... Child's Play. Yeah.
Psycho 2. Oh, he didn't write that.
He's in it, yeah.
He's in Hatchet 2.
I think if you're in the horror genre for long enough, you just become a cameo person. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah. Well, you probably become like a cool guy on everyone's Rolodex. Like he's in The Stand as a bit character as well, the miniseries. So he's probably just like Stephen King probably saw Fright Night and was like, he's cool. He
wrote The Langoliers and also I want to say Salem's Lot as well.
Right, there you go.
Obviously the adaptations of those, Stephen King wrote the source material.
So you get popped in the old Rolodex, you get a call on a wet Wednesday. Do you want to come be a fucking bit guy in this B movie? And you say yes, and you go do it.
Yeah. Like that's, so many horror icons' modern careers is that. Obviously Tony Todd did a bunch of that.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Englund almost survives entirely on that flavour of goodwill. Yeah,
a lot of saying yes.
Well, why don't you drop us a synopsis, Sammy?
Okay, the synopsis is Salem's Lot. There's a guy, right, and he moves to this town next door to a guy called Brewster. And Brewster's trying to get laid, and he's about to get laid, and then he sees something out the window that catches his eye. Some people are loading a coffin into a house. He assumes those people are the new tenants of said house, and he freaks out, and he thinks, holy crap, vampires are moving in next door. So he goes and gets his buddy, Evil, and they start questing to uncover the vampiric secrets next door with some Peeping Tom action. Whether or not there is a vampire next door remains to be seen in the spoiler part of the episode, but it is very much a mayhem ensues type scenario. Yeah. He goes to investigate, he enlists the help of a local vampire hunter, and some 80s shit goes down. What did I miss?
I think that covers it. He's got his girlfriend is a key element, Marcy from Married with Children.
Yep, she's great. Or already tipping my hand. I think she's great.
Yeah, I mean she is great. She's terrible in Married with Children.
Isn't everyone?
Yeah,
in a good way. Yeah. So we get Chris Sarandon. We get old William Ragsdale. Good old Stephen Jeffries, your boy from Evil. What more do you need?
Yeah, what more do you need? Chris Sarandon, I think, he is having a great time being very serious about this role. And I think probably that's what makes this movie a classic, is that he is taking it very seriously. And he's great. Really good actor in a very silly place, doing the absolute best he can.
It's a funny one, dude. I don't understand any of the casting in this film. I got to be honest. It's my first point is, what the fuck is happening here? Who are any of these people, and why are they doing the things they're doing? It's bizarre.
Yeah, well, I think like Stephen Jeffries in this.
I guess Stephen Jeffries
as evil Ed. He's amazing. His every single line reading is entirely, completely unhinged. And I'm glued to the screen every time he's on. It's incredible.
Yeah, he's there. I really love movies that capture the type of teenage friendship where you have one guy who's pretty straight and pretty square and kind of fundamentally flawed or limited in some way. And then if you have the counterpart be not just the sidekick, be almost like an equal and be a complete lunatic, you always get great shades of lunatic in that spectrum. And an actor like Stephen Jeffries grabs the intensity, the jank, the weird, the wild, and throws 100% into it and overacts like a complete maniac. And that's perfect for this movie. I think it would be so much flatter if we got a different performance from him, like a more moderate or like surly kind of friend, or like a more reluctant sidekick type deal. I think he does some fucking great work in this.
It's just so insane.
Yeah,
I can't imagine.
Bound to drive some people completely crazy. I bet some people hate him in this film.
He's like, I don't know, he's from a different planet. I wonder what the movies are like on that planet.
Pretty intense, I imagine. He's very different in this to 976 Evil, I think. Not, planets apart, but there's something different happening here, right?
Yeah, I think 976 Evil is... I mean, I don't know what your take on this movie is just yet, but I think it's just not as good a movie.
Right.
Obviously, it was directed by Robert Englund. This has a real director who can actually direct.
Yeah.
And I think Tom Holland just gets more out of him as a result of being better at his job.
With less screen time as well. He's really not in it that much.
Yeah. Obviously, there are some performances in this that are pretty poor. And there are some amazing performances from people that aren't normally very good.
Yeah.
Which I do want to talk a little bit about that later, like one specific moment. I love Roddy McDowall. Like, you know how much I love those Planet of the Apes sequels.
Yeah.
But he is not a good actor.
No.
Generally.
No, he's a real life sucker.
But in this, because he's playing a bad actor, it kind of works. And like I say, he has some moments where I think he's doing pretty good stuff. Probably his career best work, I would say.
Right.
So yeah,
I spent quite a while thinking that William Ragsdale was Zach Galligan.
Yeah, he's got that flavor, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I was convinced. I was like, holy fuck, it's Gremlins. And then he just turned his head and I was like, oh, it's not Gremlins at all.
If I was him, I would move to Richdale and then make a documentary, like reality show about it.
Would it by any chance be called Ragsdale to Riches?
No, it'd be called Ragsdale to Richdale. Come on now.
Ragsdale to Richdale. I got you. Sorry.
Yeah.
I wouldn't watch that. Okay, moving on.
I like a lot of the very pointed Dracula stuff in this as well.
Right.
Which I think is fun. Obviously, in Dracula, we have all of his pining for his dead ex or whatever. I don't think they call her his ex in Dracula, but
yeah.
And so all of that stuff with Amy is, I think, really fun and really on the nose and really like pointed.
Yeah, it's very Curse of Strahd.
Yeah, really good stuff.
You're excited, I can tell.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
Despite St. Patrick's Day doing its best to extinguish the light.
Look, I've still got so much Guinness in my colon that I'm still extracting some of the booze from that, I think.
Yeah, it puts lead in your pencil. You'll be fine, bud. You're fortified now.
I am. I'm 90% mineral.
You want to do some spoilers then?
Yeah, let's take a break and come back and get some spoilers on the go.
All right, you go have a Guinness.
Whoa, holy shit. I guess that's why they call it Phantom Power.
How was your Guinness, Jamie? We're back.
My Guinness tasted suspiciously like Liquid Death.
Was it also in a Liquid Death can?
It was, yeah. But it is black with white accents, so it counts as Guinness, I think.
Tell that to the boys at Liquid Death. This podcast brought to you by Tap Water. So...
And redscare.net Industries.
Yeah, good. Just fucking whatever. Redscare.net. Some Irish shit on there. Good friend. Whole back catalogue. Get in there. Knock yourselves out.
Brendan Kelly, would he call himself Irish?
No. Not if you paid him.
Okay, good.
No.
I think Americans that call themselves Irish, straight to hell.
Yeah. There's nothing better than hearing, I'm Irish. So good.
Yeah.
The worst one, though, I don't know why this grinds me so much more, is I'm actually Scottish. Fucking fuck you, cunty.
So let's get into spoilers. Tell me, Sam, what are your overriding thoughts of the movie Fright Night from 1985, starring Chris Sarandon?
It's so easy for me. Start strong.
Yep.
Fucking doesn't end strong, in my opinion. There's a big fallow patch in the middle of this movie that is poor. However, every single effect is top shelf, in my opinion. There's not a single part punch pulled in the effect department. I just think everything works. Everything looks amazing. It is directed it looks really nice.
Yeah.
Especially now, like watching it now in like really crystal clear, big TV style, as opposed to at a house party on a fucking Combi TV VHS from 14 feet away, on a fucking rental tape that's been thrashed for 10 years. So I really like how it looks. I love the spirit of it because it's a fun suburban vampire movie. Like, what's not to love? That ticks a hell of a lot of boxes. But there is a huge chunk of this that is boring as fuck. So that is unforgivable in my opinion. However,
I disagree, but okay.
I knew you would. There's so much good comedy. There's so many pretty strong young character interactions. Some fun stuff with his parents, like some genuine jeopardy here and there. As far as like 80s creature romps go, it's pretty good looking and well put together for the most part. But
so why do you think it isn't talked about in the same breath as like the Nightmare on Elm Streets?
Because I think it's fucking boring. I think
Really?
it's I just think nothing about this movie really stands out enough for you to walk away and be like, holy fuck, remember that bit in Fright Night? Whereas Nightmare on Elm Street is full of those. And a lot of its contemporaries are jam-packed with more over-the-top, semi-nonsensical / gratuitous moments that you walk away remembering that breed more of a cult following, especially among, dumb people. So I think maybe you could defend Fright Night and say that it's more subtle, it's telling a slightly different story, and it does so with more of a deft hand, potentially. But I think that would be a bit of a stretch. I just think there's a huge portion about 25 minutes in to about 15 minutes from the end where there's just not much doing, and there's not much momentum. There's stuff happening, and it's going at a bit of a clip.
Yeah, there are like moments, but
yeah.
There are some dry patches. I'll concede that.
And I think it's too fusty to be a classic. There's too much beige, brown, older people stuff happening for it to really hit with a generation of people who ran away with, dozens of cult horror movies to worship. It just doesn't quite cross over into that territory because of the Mothball element. It's why people don't. It's why Peter Cushing fucking completely splits the camp in Van Helsing terms. Like, people like me think Peter Cushing is a fucking lame Van Helsing because there's no spark, adventure, fun, life, exuberance, and people like you love him as a Van Helsing because he brings that strength of performance, that stoicism, that classic stage presence, etc., etc. So I think it's just divisive in that regard. The vampire content is great, really, really strong stuff. And like I said, there wasn't a single moment that an effect was happening on screen that I wasn't completely bolted to. I loved it. There was a melt, for fuck's sake. It was quality.
This movie has everything in if you made a list of all the stuff that you wanted to see in a movie, I'd be like, well, that's all in Fright Night, mate.
Yeah, just go watch Fright Night.
Yeah.
But just don't expect to have all your hopes and dreams fulfilled in terms of like rollicking good times.
Do you know what I realized
just
about
offbeat
Fright Night this time that I don't think I'd really noticed before? Yeah. It's really fucking sexy.
Oh yeah. That was immediately obvious, and I enjoyed that for sure. It has a sexy side to it that doesn't feel shoehorned in or overly vampiric. I don't find sexy vampire stuff really that sexy at all. But because this is relatably suburban and teenage, I found it a lot more relatable, says the 40-year-old man.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking while I was watching it, obviously the 80s had some pretty iconic vampire movies that came out around then, and I was trying to figure out maybe why. I wondered if they were kind of a response to, and this is sort of in the text in Fright Night about like slasher movies, but like I wonder if like, it was like kind of a response to slasher movies and getting back to like the history of horror, which I think you say that this movie is like a bit fusty, and I don't disagree. I think it's quite sort of faithful to those sort of 1940s Universal style horror movies, but in a very 80s way. I think that's what it does really well, is that it brings all of the classic horror stuff and just puts it in the 80s in a way that makes it feel cohesive.
It does feel quite natural. It doesn't feel like you're trying to tell a gothic Transylvanian tale somewhere wholly inappropriate, like a fucking beach resort or something. It doesn't have that schlocky element to it. So it does transfer over nicely, and it doesn't feel too played out. Like, you know what's happening the whole time.
Yeah.
You know exactly where it's going and what's happening next. But the jeopardy is just about high enough for you to give a shit. They give you just enough character for you to care. And that's worked in well in a totally fucking, like, quintessentially 80s way.
Yeah. I also wondered about maybe, obviously, Reagan and all of that stuff, and like things were getting pretty nationalistic, and so people and cultures were being sort of othered, and the fear of like the unknown, which, you know, is an ongoing thing forever and is the backbone of horror. But like the idea of like somebody moving in next door and you not knowing whether they're a nice neighbor or fucking Dracula.
Yeah, it's a great 80s theme, that whole NIMBY atmosphere, people getting more territorial, neighborhoods being, populated with people that we don't know much about, from different places. And the fear around that, the classic, like, white suburban fear of that. We see that in loads of good horror in the 80s. Yeah. And I think that's nicely kind of Morse coded in the background somewhere.
I think so.
Yeah, and I think it's cleverly done. I like it when it's not completely obvious and you have to think about it a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, there just wasn't much to dislike. It's going to be one of those classic, kind of like rating decisions where it's like, did it set out to do what it wanted to do? How effectively did it execute that? And how entertaining is it? Those are really my main criteria. And I was entertained, I would say, like, partially. But I want to talk more about this middle chunk where I just wasn't sucked in enough to really go nuts about it. I know we've said it already, but I do think a couple of the performances are pretty standout, and a couple of them are completely dismissible.
What do you think's like massively dismissible?
I don't like your boy, fucking Van Helsing. What's his name? Yeah.
So the scene that I was sort of alluding to before is when he stakes Evil Ed, who becomes the most unhinged vampire. I love the idea that, like, because he's like a shitty fucking kid, obviously he would massively embrace becoming a vampire in that way.
Yeah.
But like the way that Roddy McDowall is acting against a puppet, like an animatronic, in that when he stakes him, and like he has to like deal with the realization that like staking a vampire in quote unquote real life isn't the same as jabbing one in a movie and a big puff of dust and you're done. Like, it's a long drawn out, really fucking painful affair. So like it's amazing, and like the horror that he sells in that moment, the emotion that he goes through as he's watching this fucking puppet die. Yeah. It's incredible. It's so good. And like I know that he's not a good actor.
Yeah.
But like that moment, that is standout for him. Like
it is great, and he has this little moment of vulnerability where he says, I'm scared. Basically, he's saying I'm terrified, and I think he performs really well in that moment. I don't think I'm actually criticizing the performance at all. I just think it's some of the stylistic choices about the character. He doesn't have to be that Peter Cushing Van Helsing. He doesn't have to be, straight out of the Hammer movies and wearing tweed and just being kind of dull and a bit of a buzzkill for so the kids bring all this energy. It's quite manic, it's urgent, it's frantic, and there's always someone tamping it down in this movie and bringing it back to like a very smooth, even, slightly more beige place. And I think a few times it's him. So I think that choice is really what kind of rankled me a little bit, because you could have the craziest 80s Van Helsing imaginable. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing that dictates he has to be that guy. So I think stylistically it just wasn't a choice that really fit with the movie I was watching, in my opinion. But
have you seen the remake?
No.
So in the remake, it's David Tennant.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's David Tennant. He's the one character that David Tennant can play. He was coming off Doctor Who at the time, so it's like that flavor, and so it's much more what you say you want, but the reality of it is not good.
I definitely don't want that. I do not want David Tennant at all. Sorry, all fans of fucking David Tennant. Anton Yelchin's in that, right?
He is, yeah. Your boy.
R.I.P. Good old boy.
Yeah.
Colin Farrell, Toni Collette. It's an insane guy. Imogen Poots, your favourite.
Imogen, she sure does.
What the fuck? Is it any good?
Like, yeah, it's pretty good.
But I bet the effects are fucking shite.
Yeah, it's 2011, is it? So like
2011, yeah. It's going to be unforgivable, isn't it? I'm not watching that. Fuck that. Nope.
yeah, like in a world where so the effects in this, I was looking at them and I went through every person that worked on the effects through their IMDb because I wanted to see if any of them worked on Ghostbusters because like so many of the effects look like Ghostbusters effects and Ghostbusters 2 effects as well. Like the when Dandridge is like half bat and they're like having that big bat battle.
Yeah.
Like he looks kind of like one of the dogs, one of the
Yeah.
hellhound things from Ghostbusters. And then like when he's all puffy and exploding and like his head's all like mashed up, he sort of looks like how Vigo the Carpathian looks at the end of Ghostbusters 2. And I was like,
true.
obviously Ghostbusters 2 didn't come out yet, and Ghostbusters was only maybe just out while this was in production.
Yeah.
So like I guess that was just the vibe, but I was convinced that like they were reusing effects or borrowing effects, or at least I don't know, had the same guy doing concept art or something that was like, do you know what I mean? Because it's so the vibes are so similar.
It's quite for me. Like I just thought it was very 80s in a really good way. It seemed like there was a solid budget on effects in this, and yeah, like I said, no complaints in that department. I think vampires. This is a really key part of the movie watching experience of vampire movies. Is that vampires are so ubiquitous. A, B, really hard to characterize because ostensibly they're frail old men for the most part who then develop superhuman strength, and you have to decide how you're going to pull that off. And 9 times out of 10, it just doesn't create fear, really. Notable exceptions. We won't bore listeners with the list, but
well, I guess that's why the Lost Boys works, because it's like, what if vampires weren't old guys? They were young men.
Tough, cool young guys.
Angry young men. Yeah.
Yeah. You buy the flash of anger from people like Christopher Lee because he sells it facially. Yeah. And he's not like a weed, and he's not ancient. Bela Lugosi, you never see him like twist a guy's head off and fucking, throw it through a car or anything like that.
No,
but
wish you would. That'd be great.
Damn right.
Magic of AI, we can do that.
We can do that now, yeah. But you have to make this choice as well, whether you're going to have sexy vampire who is super smooth and mega cool and a total seduction guy, or if you choose long nails, big mustache, fucking hairy hands, creepy loyal to the original guy, or if you find a middle ground. And if your vampire version of that guy is going to be monstrous, or if he's going to be sexy with long teeth, you got so many horrible pitfalls in that decision-making process. And then you throw in actors, and then you throw in a studio, and then you throw in fucking test audiences and everything else, and you're fucked basically from the beginning. So what I loved about this is the actual dude who is the vampire was utterly and completely forgettable in my opinion. But his vampire was fucking one of the best I've ever seen. So I don't know, make of that what you will.
So I think like in the scenes where he's just being Jerry Dandridge and he's like, let's say like when Brewster's mum invites him into the house and they're having that sort of mind battle where we know and they know what's going on, but the mum is completely oblivious, despite the fact that he's being incredibly menacing to your 15-year-old child. But, you know, he's also your 15-year-old child as a date rapist. So maybe...
But your kid is also shitting his pants visibly. Like, the dynamic there is not like, you're overreacting. It's, he's shitting his pants and he's being a psycho. Like, I love the oblivious mum in an 80s comedy. It's too good.
Yeah. I think... I mean, I like Chris Sarandon, but I do think that, like, he threads the needle quite well here between, like, creepy humanoid vampire and huge monstrous bat creature bite your fucking head off kind of guy. And I think, like, the commitment of the movie, not so much him and his performance, but the movie to be like, we're going to do everything. And I think the thing that maybe makes this movie a classic in my eyes, and I don't know about anyone else, but I think this movie commits to everything that it does, and then when it moves past the thing that it commits to, it just moves on. So like when it's funny, it's fucking hilarious. When it's scary, it's actually quite terrifying. When it's sexy, you're solid as a rock. Like you it's just it's there. It just like it goes full bore on the thing that's happening in that exact moment, but it doesn't maintain that as a ongoing tone. So it feels sort of tonally weird, and that's why you get like those sort of fallow patches that you reference, because like there are moments where they have to logistic themselves into the next set piece. Yeah. And that's kind of I mean I'm okay with it, but I can see how that would be, not great.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's all fucking rocks and rivers where I'm concerned, buddy. It's feels very glued together and a little bit haphazard at times.
Yeah.
And it feels a bit discombobulating tonally, but the common thread going all the way through it is there's a vampire next door. He's trying to fucking eat you. So that makes it easy, in my opinion. That makes it easy to thread a narrative around. So I can't give massive props for that. But I will say that really committing to all of the aspects of the big nasty vampire and not fucking it up is a massive win. Like, how many times have you seen the big hulking vampire just fucking suck? And how many times have you seen the wimpy, dweeby old man vampire bore you to tears? This looks like it did all its research and went, we're going to fucking fix this, and just did a really good job.
It really nails it, and it's just, I think it's a bit magic. And I think that's why it's, even with its patches of, dry ice or whatever, like I still think it should be considered a classic for the stuff that it does really well. Because you can think about all of the 80s movies that we still sort of glob onto. Think about Police Academy, right? There is Police Academy is what, 92 minutes, and there are 85 boring minutes in that movie.
It's fucking dull as dog shit. Yeah.
Yeah. But there are
too much comedy from that era is inflated in terms of how enjoyable it is. There are some funny bits, but so much of it, like you said, is cringe or boring.
I think it's all nostalgia as well, because
probably.
And even like I wasn't, watching Police Academy when it first came out, but like when I was 10, my mum was like, "Oh, this is a movie that I watched when I was a kid." I mean, maybe not Police Academy, but like whatever. So now it's the rite of passage that you will now watch the movie that I watched when I was a kid. So I have the same nostalgia that my mum does, or whatever.
Sure.
Let's say Watership Down, obviously not a comedy like Police Academy.
I'd love it if you went your whole life thinking Watership Down was a comedy.
There's nothing funnier to me than dead rabbits.
Yeah, right.
Nothing makes me laugh more than seeing General Woundwort get his throat ripped out by a dog.
It's your favourite. Did you watch it with the wrong soundtrack or something? You had like the Benny Hill music over it.
Yeah. I had the laugh track version.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said about that nostalgia factor. And I think people could be just as guilty watching Fright Night, ladling a load of nostalgia on it and saying that's what makes it amazing. Yeah. But there are outstanding movies from this era that don't just lean on nostalgia. There are really tightly edited, constantly funny, great vibe movies that have a really strong emotional resonance. And this doesn't fall into that category for me. But in the horror world, I would totally be with you in thinking that I don't understand why it doesn't have a bigger cult audience, because there's so much happening that would please so many horror fans, even in the bits that I think are a bit boring. There's always something in the background or something, some musical, part that is that would resonate with some people. So I don't understand maybe why it didn't reach its status or audience. I mean, it's well regarded in terms of the reviews I read and the ratings it has and everything else. But
it's
again,
it's just not one that people talk
either.
about it. Like people don't. They don't talk about it in the same breath as like the Lost Boys or which I think is infinitely worse. Like I don't like Lost Boys.
It has
at
the
all.
star power. It has people walking away from it thinking Kiefer Sutherland, dude, fuck yeah, and somebody went on to have a massive career, out the other side of it, which I think is big. But
I think that is a contributing factor, isn't it?
I mean, who's the main guy in Lost Boys?
Jason Patrick or
Jason
Corey
Patrick,
Haim.
yeah, and Corey Haim. All these guys have big careers. Corey Feldman's in it.
Yeah.
You know, I just think it's like with a movie like Back to the Future, for example, the ultimate cult classic. If you measure all other cult classics by that standard, it ticks all the nostalgia boxes. It meets all the criteria of big stars,
Yeah.
soundtrack, very specific look, image and feel, emotional resonance, growth, comedy, everything. So translate that into the horror world. What do you think is the horror equivalent of Back to the Future?
I mean, I would say Ghostbusters.
You can't call it a horror movie, though, can you?
I mean, it's the horror equivalent of Back to the Future, though. Like, it's...
But it can't be as close. It has to be a proper horror movie. Back to the Future is like the young person's Ghostbusters in a way.
Yeah.
It's hard to...
Back to the Future is such a perfect shout as well, because, like, it was amazing that, like, now for us, it's all about the nostalgia of us watching it when we were kids, but for adults at the time, it was all about their nostalgia for the 50s.
For the 50s,
it's like it's genius. It's like,
yeah, it's very clever. Yeah.
Oh.
And the stuff in Back to the Future that is quote unquote fusty, like when they're hanging out at the Brown Mansion, and it's very, and fucking Christopher Lloyd himself is 53 in that movie, and he's one of the most dynamic, magnetic performances of the decade. Do you know what I mean? Like with kids. So to pull that off in that way is a massive achievement. That again is like something that a lot of these horror movies don't do. They obviously don't have that X factor. They don't have the edge. But I am very curious as to what you think is like the ultimate nostalgic but stands up and holds up horror movie that you could put next to Back to the Future genre wise.
I might say the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I suppose England is Michael J. Fox in the horror world.
Like, it doesn't have the star power.
No.
Because all of the people in... Johnny Depp is in it, so there is that. But, like...
He's in it for like 11 seconds.
But everyone that's in it that isn't Johnny Depp is, like, they're only known for being in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie/movies.
Yeah.
But we all watched it when we were fucking 8 years old, and we're all massively mentally scarred by it, and we all love it. I don't know anyone that didn't watch it way too young. I feel like everybody in the world watched A Nightmare on Elm Street far too young.
I watched it over the back of the couch while my babysitter was watching it, and I fucking lost my shit. I had so many nightmares. I was absolutely and thoroughly scarred by it.
Yeah, it was, and it's funny because like you watch it now and you're like, this is obviously we looked at. We've seen all the sequels and we see how goofy it gets, but when you go back to the original and look at it through like adult eyes, it's insane that like it is so goofy. That fucking scene where he's running with his arms out and they're all stupid long arms. It's like, why were we scared of this man?
Mate, when the fucking mum gets sucked through the window.
Yeah.
It's so dumb. But it's still the Johnny Depp's death scene in the bed. That was fucking scorched into my medulla for the rest of my adolescence. It fucked me up hard.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't close my eyes in the bath.
Really?
in case... Which I know,
hand came up.
Yeah, Freddie's not after me and my testicles. He wants,
he might be
15-year-old girls' vaginas. So like,
could have been going for your little clackers, bud. Could have been in there. Glub,
so
glub, here comes Freddie.
I was so terrified to close my eyes in the bath.
Yeah,
which like the bath is already scary. I spent the first 5 years being terrified I was going to go down the plug hole. And then the next 10 years
Freddie
afraid of the hand coming out of the bath while I was in there.
You're going to get your nuts ripped off.
Exactly. That's why I was so unbathed as a child.
Get a shower, bud. Now
we didn't have showers in the
death
90s,
over
did
yourself twice a day.
Exactly. The sparkling aspect of it cleans me off.
Yeah.
Did you have a shower in the 90s?
We're so old, we grew up without showers.
There was a weekly bath. Sunday night was like bath night.
Yeah. How fucked up is that? We're so old, dude. My God. Drop us a review if you think we're making relevant, relatable content for 2025, talking about how we didn't have showers and we bathed once a week.
Yeah, we've become that
fucking
fucking Monty
shared
Python
bathwater
catch.
with my family.
Yes.
I used to go around and be like, does anyone want my water? And someone else would get in your filthy water and wash themselves.
That is.
Or like, depending on your pecking order in the family, you'd be the last fucker to get in a lukewarm brown bath. My whole childhood. Jesus.
Yeah. So anyway, that's nothing to do with this.
So what I'm thinking is, Fright Night has none of the charismatic resonance of any of those movies in any dimension, in my opinion.
Well,
and
so
that's
what
why it's not the classic that maybe some people think it should be.
What I think is that it does have some of that nostalgia stuff that we're talking about that's in sort of, say, Back to the Future. Like, it's a very sort of contemporary 80s thing, but it does talk very pointedly about the past. So we've got the horror host stuff. We've got the like the fading horror actor character, like all of that. So it's trying to do something very similar to specifically to Back to the Future, which I think is not something I'd really considered before, but it's like very fixed in the 80s, but also doing a lot of that sort of looking back. But Roddy McDowall is not Christopher Lloyd.
No, not by any stretch of the imagination. And I think if you're trying to recreate that kind of vibe, don't do the Stephen King thing and have it be a writer. You know, it's the equivalent of that, isn't it? Like, he's an actor. Like, people watching movies are not interested in actors. I don't want to see a fucking actor in a movie. I want to see actors being the movie. And that was just a boring trait.
Agree. I think that, like, the idea of, like, he's an actor, and it's sort of like the Three Amigos thing, right? Or like the Galaxy Quest, or all of that stuff, where like you think that they can do it. My Name is Bruce was the same thing. Like, I like the idea of the horror host, and I guess it's convenient that he's an actor because they have seen him, you know, kill vampires. But the tricky thing is that the character, like you say, is a bit fusty, and like I say, he does have moments, but he is a bit fusty and a bit sort of just old, and does sort of bring the vibe down a bit. But I don't know how else you would do that. Like, I don't know how else.
I just thought he could have been a local kook or con man. Do you know what I mean? That would have been
like Michael J. Fox in The Frighteners.
Yeah, exactly. Except he's legit, right, in The Frighteners?
Yeah, but nobody believes that he is. That's
true. I don't know. It's a personal thing that I just don't like. Novels about authors and movies about actors, like, I'm just not into it. Birdman excluded.
Yeah, you should maybe stop reading Stephen King novels.
Unfortunately, I had to, because they all started being like that, and it pissed me right off. It's just not. It's unimaginative, in my opinion. So less of that would have been more for me. But again, I seem to have a difficult relationship with Van Helsing, so I'm not easy to please. He is the movie's Van Helsing. He doesn't do it for me, and that's fine.
I guess the tricky thing is that because he's playing that sort of type of Van Helsing, that's the kind of actor that he was. Yeah. It would maybe be, you know how like insane and eccentric like Vincent Price is? Yeah. Like if it was more a Vincent Price vibe. Yeah. Where, and then I guess they do sort of allude, there's some Vincent Price elements to the character, but like, he's much more of a Cushing than a Price.
Also, get Vincent Price. Like, what are you doing? Just get him.
What was he doing in 1985? Fucking Basil the Great Mouse Detective.
Exactly. Not. I mean, which is great. Let's be honest,
obviously.
One of the greatest ever. But get him and lean into it so hard it becomes one of the biggest things of the movie. Then you've got a cult classic on your hands. Holy crap. But like, great idea, Jamie.
In the 80s, I think they weren't meta enough to make My Name is Bruce with, you know, Vinny P.
I guess people like Vincent Price in 85 are just boring to people because they haven't reached the point where they have that fervent nostalgia. They haven't realized that they're missing the point of how great Vincent Price is, and just transpose him into 85 isn't a giant stretch. Like, he would still perform fantastically at that point.
Yeah, like it would be cool if it was like a real horror host, like, I don't know, Zachary or Elvira.
Yeah, why not have it be Elvira?
Why
Joe
not?
Bob.
Yeah,
he's probably like 14 at this point or something.
I think Joe Bob was doing the stuff on what channel it was in the
Yeah.
80s, right? Mid 80s, late,
Yeah,
maybe
I
a
think
little
so.
bit later, but
Yeah. He's probably doing the circuit looking for fucking acting jobs at this point. They probably passed over him.
yeah,
I mean, fucking get Mike Myers in there doing a Scottish accent. Do what you got to do. Just make it
What if they get
memorable.
Shrek to be their fucking
Exactly. He'd. So,
He'd done? No.
yeah, a minor, like, miscue, in my opinion. Not a big deal. But what happens in the middle of this movie, dude? Because I was zoning in, zooming out, zonking and zipping around.
Like plenty of stuff,
Yeah.
but it's all story building to make the ending make sense. I think like the way that it builds the stakes, stakes, vampire.
Hello.
But yeah, the way that it like develops the stakes that's all part of that. That's what they're doing there. If it was me, I would cut the scene with the cop
Yeah.
because like I just have him make a phone call and then be like, he's not a vampire, you're an idiot. Like we don't need this whole fucking scene.
Yeah. Have the Home Alone scene. Has the child ingested poison? Yeah. Just have that and then bin him off. Yeah.
That's a section that I would possibly bin off. But everything else I think is great. I love the fake out bit where they go to try and figure out that Dandridge isn't a vampire. And
Drinking the holy water.
yeah, I think that is good Jeopardy building. But it's a bit dry when it's happening, but you know that it's going to lead to something that's meaningful.
Yeah.
And like having Peter Vincent accidentally realize that this guy is really a vampire, I think is genius.
Yeah,
Really
that
fun.
part was fun. Yeah, some good ups and downs in that scene. And then obviously him realizing that he's been busted by stepping on the mirror. Then you get that kind of the double layer of like, oh, they know he's a vampire now. He knows that they know what's his next move. It's a little bit of chess, a little bit of fucking vampire chess.
Obviously, Evil Ed is a little dickhead, right? But he's his mate.
I like him. Yeah.
I mean, I like him too, but like he's Brewster's ostensibly his best mate. I mean, they have a sort of antagonistic friendship, but he goes from like normal to I'm the most evil vampire in 2 seconds. Do you think becoming a vampire makes you evil?
I think it unlocks all of the stuff that we repress. That's one of the things I like about the idea of vampirism is I don't think it like infects you with some kind of evil curse. I think you become immortal. You know what your limits are. You know what you can do. And your master tells you what life as a vampire is. And you know it's just sucking and fucking and sucking and fucking. And you just go nuts. You go completely insane in that moment because you're immortal and you live to suck and fuck.
It's true, I am.
This is Jamie's ASMR. This is what we do. I just say these things to Jamie for hours. So that's always been my take on it. You know, you become a creature of the night and a switch goes and it's like, right, fuck everything associated with daytime. That's not for me anymore. Off I pop. You know, everybody knows exactly what kind of vampire they'd be when they sit and think about it for like 5 minutes. And it's fucking great. Like that's why I like his vampiric performance. And it's why I don't like the cheese dick nihilistic bullshit performances where people are just like trench coat goths wandering around being all full of malaise and, you know, woe is me. I like a nasty, violent, insane lunatic vampire.
I think there is space for the malaise.
Yeah.
Like the Jim Jarmusch movie Only Lovers Left Alive, I think is amazing. And the idea that like when somebody interesting explores the idea of like, as a vampire, you will live to see everyone that you ever loved die. And
in a different movie, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, in this, I needed this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in an art movie where that's more of a theme to explore, abso-fucking-lutely. And the romantic side of it, for sure. The more crepuscular side of, you know, gothic vampire tales is incredibly appealing to me. But in this, I didn't want any of that shit because that would have slowed us down to an absolute glacial crawl. If we had to watch that kid go through all that fucking jeez, I don't think I could take it. But he takes it up a notch, he ramps it up, he goes mental, and I love it. It's exactly what the scene and the character needs, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely
It's a good
agree. I
one,
think it really works. And like they do, obviously not with him, but they do some of the romantic stuff with Amy.
Yeah.
But they sort of, it flies by. Like it's like, oh, here's a painting and it looks just like her. And then you know everything you need to know at that point. And then it's all like looks between the two of them.
Yeah.
I think the scene in like the disco goes on for too long.
I'd have chopped that completely, to be honest. But
I
know.
liked some of it. I like the moment when she's like, when they're like twirling, and she's like seeing the mirror as she's twirling and realizing that she's dancing with a vampire.
I'd be surprised if they didn't build that whole scene out of that. Do you know what I mean? Like, we need a scene with a mirror. What can we do that's fucking 80s as hell? Spin around in a club. Yeah.
But there are 3 songs that play in full, I think, in that scene. So maybe just one of them would be fine.
Maybe just fucking 20 seconds you could get it done. Like, that's one thing I will say for modern movies. There's no 3-song club scenes anymore. Like, I like the idea of trimming that down. What is the runtime of this movie? I don't think I even looked.
I think it's
an hour
103 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, you make these edits, you're getting it down to a tight 95, 98, and you're in a better place, in my opinion. But that's just because I find very specific things boring. Doesn't mean it's crucial edits, you know. So I think I totally agree that the romantic stuff kind of blows by a little bit too quick. I was mixed because I was like, you have told us everything we need to know with that one portrait, but maybe a bit more depth to his character would have been nice. A little bit more understanding of the depth of the motivation. Because the problem with the whole middle section of building Jeopardy, the Jeopardy exists the second you have a vampire living next door to you. So it all feels perfunctory. Like a vampire's trying to eat you. You've seen him be a vampire. He's going to eat you, and everything else feels like snakes and ladders. Like it's just boring. So make the romance more of a thing, and I'm more in potentially.
I don't know, because I feel like the portrait does everything. Because who has a portrait of someone that they don't really care about?
Yeah. And I love that. I love that they did it in a split second. We knew what was going on. So I had mixed feelings there for sure. But I wanted to see more of the performance. To be honest, I wanted to see more of Amanda Burse doing the thing. She was great. She was incredible as a teenage girl. You know, she was totally believable, wholly followable. You know, pretty magnetic. And then when she becomes a woman, essentially later in the movie, the same vibe. Just does a great transition. Starts to be this fully fleshed out vampire character, and we don't really get to hang out with her anywhere near enough. In my opinion, we don't get to hang out with the kids anywhere near enough in their like kid lives. There's a little bit at the high school. I wanted more. I want them doing the full fucking Macaulay Culkin prep in the house type scene. I don't want to just come back and see that he's got candles everywhere. I wanted more of the lives of the kids, as always. But, you know.
If you were a vampire, let's say me and you are a vampire and a zombie familiar, and we're moving into our new house, would you maybe try and be a bit more covert about bringing the coffin in?
Bringing the coffin in, biting the bitch in the window, just carrying everything down to the basement in the middle of the day. Yeah, I might be a bit more discreet, actually, bud.
It would be like, I like that there's no ambiguity in the movie of like, he's obviously a fucking vampire. This isn't The Burbs. So I think that's fun and I like it. Yeah. But like, you will not last very long as a vampire if you're just like carrying your coffin around and biting chicks in the open.
Yeah, exactly. Directly opposite a teenage boy's window.
It's the 80s. Like every teenage boy is peeping through their neighbors' windows. Like,
and you know what? They're actually kind of allowed in the 80s as well.
So isn't it bold that they establish the main character in his first 2 scenes by being like, oh, hey, this guy's a date rapist. And, oh, hey, this guy is a peeping Tom. What a cool guy. Let's be friends with him for 2 hours.
Well, Jamie, if I may defend the peeping Tom date rapist, the reason we're endeared to him is because he sucks at both of those things. Like, he does go too far with his girlfriend in terms of consent, absolutely. But then when she wants it, he's too fucking inept to turn around and pick up the signals.
Well, that's stupid. That's such bad writing. Like, oh, I'm here and I'm rock solid. You've been leading me on for a year. And she's like, okay, take me. And he's like, no, I'm too busy looking out of the window. Like, I don't believe that. That is not a believable action for a teenage boy.
I believed it, but I thought it was poorly shot. I just thought the shots were bad because we don't get to see his face. If we get the dumb, engrossed face, we just get the back of his head looking out the window. So there's no character to that comedy or that scene. It's just a missed cue.
Also, if, let's say, you were in my room and you were like hot and ready, and I was like, hey, someone outside is carrying a coffin, you wouldn't be like, I don't care, fuck me now. You'd be like, oh,
no, I'd be like, what the fuck?
I'm interested in this coffin thing. We can bang in 3 minutes. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. and it'll be over in 2. So we can probably still watch The Coffin if you just get over here. Yeah, absolutely. That whole thing was kind of. I thought it was fun, and I hoped it was setting up some serious dumbness and some ridiculous, teenage shenanigans. But it set up enough about the characters for me to get what I needed in the scene. I didn't pick it apart too much. But yeah, he's a bad peeping Tom as well. He's at the window with the lights on with binoculars, just like, dude. It's like the George McFly thing all over again. And I like that. I thought it was fun. There's something really uncomfortable about any busted peeping Tom scene to me. Something like deeply like cellular revolting about.
Is it because you're worried that you're going to get caught one day?
Always. Yeah, always. I've been caught so many times.
I think like when I was a kid, I don't think I ever did.
Such a good. Sorry, carry on.
I don't think I ever did any like major peeping, but like
not saying a fucking word.
But I did think it was okay. Like I was told by media that it was okay to look through strangers' windows, and if they're showering, you get to have an eyeful.
That's what I mean. If anything, in this scene in 85, he's doing the right stuff. Like, he's a good guy for what he does to his girlfriend, because by conventional standards, he would have just fucked her, and everyone would have been like, "That's fine too." But he stops, so he's a kind of a nerd, and then. By conventional standards of the time, I must reiterate. And then he's well within his rights to be watching other people have sex through his bedroom window. And he gets busted and he's embarrassed, so he's a nerd.
If in the moment when she was like, "Okay, I'm ready, let's get into bed," he was like, "Oh, wait, no." If the performance was much more like, "Do you know what? I'm actually terrified of sex, so I'm going to look out the window and, oh, look, there's a coffin." That would make so much more sense to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, faced with the reality of having to perform sex on this beautiful young woman, you actually become terrified and very engrossed in what's happening outside. Oh, look, a bird. Like, do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, that's funny. That's definitely funny. Can I just pull us back to perform sex on? Superb.
Is that not what we do?
That's what women love to hear, bud. I'm going to perform sex on you. Not just women. Works on dudes.
Yeah, true.
So, listen. There's a lot going on in that midsection that doesn't exactly pump my plums. And I got to be honest, I didn't find it particularly scary. But the reason I didn't find it scary is because I love the effects too much. I think I was just enjoying the effects too much.
Do you have a favorite effect?
I like the downshifting transformation of the vampire when he gets stabbed with the pencil. I quite enjoyed that. I thought it was shot really well. The melt, I think, is top tier.
Yeah, I think the idea that like one of the greatest melts in cinema history is in Fright Night.
Yeah,
it's
a real good melt.
Fantastic. It's so good.
Yeah, strong melt, definitely. Yeah. Green, a lot of green. We love green.
I love also the de-transformation from wolf to vampire to dead guy is
phenomenal. Yeah, it's really good. It doesn't. So much wolf stuff again sucks in movies, and it's why we love Dog Soldiers so much. I think because the wolf stuff was rad, and they lent into it so hard.
I like it as a wolf. He's just a wolf.
Real life size wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like even like not in the transformation, but after the wolf has been stabbed, and it's just like an animatronic like flailing around on the floor, and it looks kind of shit, but also incredible.
I just thought it looked really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, I will always take real over CG. I just believe it. There's just a part of my brain that goes, "That's real." And I take it for face value. I accept it as it is. I'm dying to know what you think of Amanda Bearse's vampire makeup / vibe / look, because it is unconventional, I would say.
Yeah, well, I think I don't love her big facial prosthetic. We've talked about this before, but like they were not meant to use that in light
on the fucking cover.
Yeah, so like it was meant to be a quick shot in the darkness of like, oh, she's got a fucked up mouth, and But the thing that really sells it for me is the performance. I don't think I would ever consider her, the actor, as someone that could effectively change their entire personality like that, because Amy is very similar to Marcy Darcy from Married with Children, and all of the other stuff that we've seen her in, which admitted isn't loads.
No. But we know her quite well from Married. If you're a fan, you know her well enough from Married with Children. She's like the Jackie of Married with Children, right?
Yeah, I watched enough Married with Children to... She's such a big character that, like, her husband disappears and she just has a new husband one day. And, like, it's great.
Yeah.
And they bring him back as well. It's really funny. Married with Children is just... It's a great show. Anyway, like... The idea that she is able to like entirely embody this other character, like you almost would think it's a different actress.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I think is almost bad because like it takes you a minute to register that she's actually her because the facial prosthetics are so different that she doesn't look like the same person and she's acting like a completely different person and really convincingly. So
Don't
like,
they give her loads longer hair at one point as well?
Yeah, well that's the sexy sexy vampire lady, you know, they have the big long hair and they're sort of spread out on the bed. Like that's the vibe, isn't it? The seductive.
But why doesn't she have long hair when she's... Yeah, I get it. It's a contrast thing. But I loved everything she did in this movie. I think she could be potentially criticized as being one of the less memorable aspects of the main body of the movie in terms of performances. I don't think that's fair. I think she's glue for the most part. She's a real glue guy. And then when she becomes vampy, it's, you know, dicks racing off to the moon. Like she's incredibly seductive in that performance, and I think she brings the horror so hard. I find that facial prosthetic scary because I'm a loser, but I think it looks...
But the hotness of the scene where she's getting bitten by Dandridge as well. It's like it's so sort of graphically sexual without being remotely graphically sexual.
Yeah, and that's all her. Like he does not much, and that scene feels a little bit melodrama, Red Shoe Diaries kind of thing, and it has the classic iconic image of the blood running down her back in two streams, which could be super derivative and totally dismissible, but with the tone of the scene that they create and with the build of her character, I think it works really nicely. It's really well placed, the right length. Again, I'm talking about you, Jamie. Just good stuff.
Yeah, I think like that tonally, it doesn't belong in this movie. And that's what I mean about like them going full bore for whatever they're doing at the moment.
Yeah.
And like I think that it does mean that we have a tonally wonky movie. But what it also means is that you're completely in for all of the stuff that you're meant to be completely in on. And I have to respect it. I absolutely.
It's also probably partially designed to be a popcorn munching movie theater date night movie. Yeah. So, you know, I don't want to be cynical, but a lot of these movies were kind of boilerplated to have low periods so that people could make out and then they could come back and carry on watching, or they could leave and get a fucking Coke and have a piss. So I don't want to criticize it too harshly just because the pacing wasn't to my taste. You know what I mean? There's so much in this movie that's cool.
The difference now is that like movies are so focus grouped to the point of death that you don't ever want anyone to look away because the product placement thing that you've got in that specific scene,
the BMW or whatever,
like you need to have all eyes on the screen at all times, and that's why you don't get the 3-song dance sequence in a modern movie. They cut it out of Nosferatu.
You just get a no talent musician playing an entire cinematic role instead. Product placement in and of itself. No, it's fun to think of it in its time and place, I think, because watching this imagine you're just a fucking bored, shitless suburban 18-year-old and it's a wet Wednesday and this has just come out at the movies. That's going to be the perfect way to watch this movie, I think.
Absolutely. They didn't design this movie for two men on the cusp of their 40s to discuss it for hours on end. That's not what the intended experience of this movie was meant to be.
No. And that's
shame on
why
them,
we're here.
Frankly.
Yeah, shame
for
on
not
them.
thinking of us.
When's someone going to make a movie for us?
Yeah. Aging white guys, we need a movie, please.
Yeah, when's anyone going to do something for us? That's what I want to know.
Tell you what, I'll do something for you right now, Sam. Should we go to a break?
Fuck yeah, about time.
Come on, man. Does that thing even work? No. There's nothing out there. It's just dead air.
I'm back, Sam. Are you back?
3 songs later, I'm back. I think it's time that you summed this bad boy up and gave us a little rating, a little review.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think this is a great movie. I think that it does everything that it wants to do. It does it as well as it can. There are, like you say, there are some trophy moments, but like, it's just so full bore that you can't fault any of it, I think, really. And I just love it. And I think maybe one of the reasons why it wasn't talked about as much as other horror from the 80s is it's just not been available on streaming for a long time.
Do you think so?
I think maybe it just sort of fell out of consciousness. So in the mid to late 2000s, early 2010s, we all had massive DVD collections. So like we could control what we watched at all times. And obviously I still have a massive DVD collection, but I very rarely watch a DVD.
Sure.
So we're very much beholden to what's available on streaming.
Yeah.
And so if a movie isn't on streaming, then people aren't discovering it.
It kind of doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah. Like people might seek it out elsewhere. They might find a DVD. They might, see a Blu-ray. But like,
yeah,
the real way to capitalize on a movie now is to have it on streaming. Like you think about every time a movie sort of recycles in the consciousness, it's because it's just dropped on Netflix or whatever.
Yeah. People go through this cycle of like, it's a certain time of year or certain things happening, and they Google lists of movies that they might not have seen that are relevant to something they're interested in. And if there's a movie above that on the list that's on streaming, they'll watch it, and they won't seek out the one below it because they're not going to pay money for it, or they're not going to go through the hassle of getting it illegally or whatever. Especially a movie like Fright Night. People aren't going to fight to watch this movie any more than one extra push of a button. So I think you're probably right, actually. That makes a lot of sense. I didn't know it hadn't been available on streaming. I just assumed it was everywhere all the time.
Well, so when it appeared on streaming, I was like, I'm putting that on the list immediately because I was like,
sure.
It'll be fun to talk about, but also like it's actually available for people to watch, which it hasn't been.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really care whether something is super available, whether we cover it or not, but I do think it'll be maybe more interesting if people can actually watch it. That's why we don't do fucking Ebola syndrome and stuff like that. But maybe one day we'll do Ebola syndrome because it's fucking great. It's just about a guy that goes around giving people Ebola.
Perfect.
Yeah. Ultimately, I just think it's really good. I think everything hits the way it should, and I have so little notes. A couple of scenes that you could trim out, but besides that, I think like this is Tom Holland's masterpiece. This is Roddy McDowall's finest work. This is Chris Sarandon being incredibly charming and also incredibly menacing at the same time. Everybody's bringing their A game in the effects. Like the only really weak link for me is Brewster. And like as an actor and also as a character, I think he's just whatever. But like the point is that he is a blank slate that like the audience for this movie is meant to insert themselves into that.
Yeah.
So, and that's why he looks like Zach Galligan, and that's why he looks like basically every 80s teen horror leading man type character.
Yeah.
Like even your mate Ragman.
Yeah.
It's great though. It's just really good. It's got a hooker death in the beginning. How did you feel about that?
True. Better than most.
Yeah. Because she looked like a very sexy Helen Hunt.
Yeah, she's super hot, and it was off screen, so I didn't have to worry about watching that hooker die. So I enjoyed that. That was tastefully done. Good, tasteful hooker death. Well done.
She also, apart from the radio broadcast, it's like she was very well known as a hooker. Like she doesn't look like a hooker to me. I wouldn't be like that's just a woman in a nice dress, and she's got makeup on.
I just love the idea of a super well-known local hooker. It's so cool. We have it here. We have it around here. No names named. But fucking hilarious. Like a local well-known hooker has been murdered behind, what was it? It was like behind a Best Buy or something. So funny. Yeah, it's great.
So in terms of a rating, I'm going to go with 28 out of 32 teeth in that stupid facial prosthetic.
Very good. That's a high rating.
Yeah, 28 out of 32.
Nice.
What about you? Lay it on me.
Yeah, good Raz. Decent flick. Didn't like the middle. Jobs are good, and I'm going to give it 7.5 pencil dicks out of 14.
Okay. How do you feel about Dracula driving a Jeep?
Good question. In the 1980s, fine. Imagine if it had been a DeLorean.
Like, I
love
don't
those
understand.
80s Jeeps, though. They're so fun.
Like, they've got no sides or tops. Does it just not rain anywhere?
Well, again, that's one of my sort of central criticisms I didn't bring up because it's kind of boring, but I guess we'll do it at the end here because people have stopped listening. There's no real sense of place in this movie. I wanted it to be like quintessentially New England or West Coast as fuck. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't really have that. Apparently, the remake is set in Las Vegas.
That would make sense.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think, what's his name? Tennant is a magician. He's like a spooky magician, like Chris Angel is the vibe.
Oh, even fewer every time I find a reason to watch it, you give me a reason not to. David Tennant as a magician, get fucked.
Yeah.
So I think this is one that might wheedle its way into a rewatch pile for me. This could pop up again.
It's definitely a good background at a party movie, isn't it? Like,
I could see that being a thing
because like there's enough engaging stuff happens, and it's all quite visual. That, like, you could turn to your mate, have a chat, grab a couple of cheese and pickle off the hedgehog while the boring stuff's happened, and then make sure your eyes are back for the melt.
Yeah, I can't see it making it to like a pre-pump list. It's not going in the pre-Halloween period, I wouldn't say. It's not quite got the caliber, but it's somewhere. It's somewhere in that, that region. Maybe a post-pump come-down flick. Possibly like the days after Halloween. Listen, that's our podcast, man. That's a wrap.
That is a wrap. Follow us on socials at FT Horror Show. Go to places and drop a review and a rate and a subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And we'll see you next time.